The ballroom at Whitman Tower was the kind of place that made ordinary people feel small on purpose. 12-foot chandeliers, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, 500 guests in tailored suits and designer gowns, all of them celebrating a $2 billion government contract that had just made Vance Tech the most powerful name in the industry. And at the center of it all stood Elena Vance, the woman who had built every inch of that empire with her own hands. Then the screen changed. 2 minutes of carefully edited footage, a fabricated meeting, manufactured words stitched together from real ones. And just like that, the most powerful person in the room became the most isolated. The partners who had begged for her signature stopped returning her eye contact. The board members who had praised her vision 3 hours ago now studied their drinks. The applause that had filled the room turned into whispers, and the whispers turned into something colder. No one moved toward her, except one man. He wasn't a lawyer, wasn't a shareholder, wasn't anyone who stood to gain a single thing from crossing that floor. He was a systems engineer standing in the corner of the room with his 8-year-old daughter beside him, a man nobody in that ballroom had bothered to learn the name of. That was their first mistake. If you enjoy stories about quiet people who do the right thing when it costs them something, hit subscribe. New stories every week, and this one is just getting started. Part 1. 1,687 words. Marcus Webb had not planned to stay long. He had arrived at Whitman Tower at 7:15 with a rolling tool bag in one hand and Lily's hand in the other, already calculating how fast he could finish the system check and get his daughter home before 9. The babysitter had canceled 2 hours before the event. A text message, no explanation, and Marcus had spent 15 minutes considering his options before accepting that there were none. Lily came with him. She always adapted. She was better at it than most adults he knew. The Whitman Tower ballroom was a different world from the server rooms and cable runs Marcus usually worked in. He noticed the way the security team at the entrance looked at him. The half-second pause before checking his credentials. The slight recalibration when his contractor badge confirmed he was supposed to be there. He had been noticing that particular pause his entire career. He had stopped letting it slow him down years ago. "Stay close," he told Lily as they moved through the lobby. "I know, Dad." She was already looking at the chandeliers. The audio-visual setup was in a maintenance corridor off the main hall. Marcus had been hired by the building's facilities team to verify the projection system for the evening's presentation, a standard pre-event check that should have taken 20 minutes. He pulled up the system diagnostics, ran through the signal chain, confirmed the input routing. Everything looked clean. Then he noticed the device. It was plugged into the secondary HDMI port on the main display controller. A compact wireless transmitter, matte black, no manufacturer markings. Not building hardware, not Vance Tech hardware. Something brought in from outside and plugged in quietly, probably during the setup window earlier that afternoon when a dozen different vendors had access to the space. Marcus crouched down and looked at it without touching it. In 15 years of systems work, he had learned to read hardware the way other people read faces. This device was not a malfunction. It was not a forgotten adapter. It was placed deliberately at a specific input point by someone who understood exactly how the display routing worked. Whoever had put it there knew the system well enough to hide inside it. He took out his personal hard drive, a habit from 4 years of forensic IT work earlier in his career, and mirrored everything the device had stored. Full data copy, metadata intact. He photographed the port location from 3 angles. Then he left the device exactly where it was. Removing it would have destroyed its value as evidence. While Lily waited in the corridor, Marcus had 15 minutes before the event's opening remarks. He used them. The device's transmission signature pointed to an external party with specific knowledge of this building's AV architecture. Not a random intrusion, but a targeted one. He pulled up the recent business news on his phone and searched Vance Tech's acquisition history. The name Meridian Group appeared in a filing from 3 weeks prior, an unsolicited offer, formally rejected by Elena Vance. He filed the connection away without yet knowing what he would do with it. He found Lily waiting just outside the corridor, watching the catering staff arrange dessert towers with the focused attention she gave to anything she found genuinely interesting. "Can we go soon?" she asked. "Almost," he said. "Let me check the main board and then we'll find somewhere quiet." They moved into the ballroom as the event reached its peak. The room was loud with self-congratulation, the particular noise of people celebrating not just a victory, but the validation that came with it. Marcus scanned the crowd out of habit. Exits, AV station, security positions, stage. He also located Elena Vance because she was the kind of person a room organized itself around without meaning to. She stood near the center of the space, speaking with two men in the measured, confident way of someone who had spent years making difficult conversations look effortless. Early 40s, dark blazer, no jewelry except a single watch. She had the posture of a person who had never once walked into a room assuming she did not belong there. Marcus had worked enough corporate events to recognize the difference between performed confidence and the real thing. Hers was real. He also noticed that the two men she was speaking with were not quite looking at her. They were looking past her, slightly to the left, in the direction of Raymond Pierce. Marcus did not know Pierce's name yet. He knew his type. The man stood at the edge of the room's social gravity, stationed rather than socializing, with the particular stillness of someone waiting for something they had already set in motion. Polished. Patient. The most dangerous kind of still. At 9 o'clock, the room's lighting shifted as the main stage screen activated for what the program listed as the financial highlights presentation. The footage that played was not financial highlights. Marcus watched it the way he watched everything, without immediate reaction, processing before responding. 2 minutes and 14 seconds. It showed Elena Vance in what appeared to be a private meeting with a man Marcus recognized from the Meridian Group's public filings, their chief strategy officer. The dialogue was constructed to imply that she had exchanged internal acquisition data for personal financial arrangements. It was well made. The lighting matched. The audio was clean. The cuts were placed at intervals that felt organic. But Marcus had spent 15 years looking at the seams in systems, and he could see them here. A slight inconsistency in the ambient sound between two cuts. A metadata timestamp in the lower right framing that did not match the supposed date of the meeting. A single moment where Elena's eyeline did not track correctly to the man she was supposedly addressing. Fabricated. Completely. And confirmed by everything he had already found in that maintenance corridor. The room did not see the seams. The room saw the story. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then it broke into something ugly. Marcus watched Elena on the stage. She did not run, did not reach for her phone, did not look to anyone in particular for rescue. She stood exactly where she was and absorbed the shift in the room's temperature with the discipline of someone who had decided, in those 3 seconds, that she would not give them the collapse they were waiting for. But he saw her hands. She had pressed her right thumb against the inside of her left wrist, a small, private gesture barely visible. He had seen Lily do the same thing on the first day of a new school. It was what a person did when they were holding themselves together from the inside. Pierce, standing at the front of the crowd, began to applaud. Slow, measured, just enthusiastic enough to signal permission to the room. Around him, others followed. Not with applause, but with the thing that came after applause died. The turning away, the closing of circles, the collective agreement to treat someone as already gone. Marcus looked at Lily. She was watching Elena with the direct, uncomplicated concern of a child who had not yet learned to look away from someone who was hurting. "Dad," Lily said quietly, "nobody's helping her." Marcus had been told at various points in his career that his instinct to involve himself in things that weren't strictly his business was a liability. He had been told it professionally, and once very clearly by his late wife, who had said it with a smile that meant she didn't actually want him to change. He spotted Tom Davidson, a facilities manager he had worked with on 2 previous jobs, a steady, reliable man standing near the north wall, and moved toward him. "Tom," Marcus said quietly, I need Lily to stay with you for a few minutes. Don't let her out of your sight." Davidson looked at the stage, then back at Marcus, reading the situation with the practical intelligence of someone who had managed enough corporate events to know when something had gone wrong behind the curtain. "Yeah," he said. "Of course. Go." Marcus crouched down to Lily's level. "Stay with Mr. Davidson. Don't move from his side." "Where are you going?" "To help her," he said. Lily looked at Elena across the room, then back at her father. She nodded once, with the gravity of someone who understood that this was serious and had decided to be serious about it too. Marcus handed her his jacket, straightened up, and crossed the floor. Part 2. 3,014 words. The crowd had already begun the slow, deliberate process of erasing Elena Vance from the room. It did not happen with confrontation. It happened the way these things always happened in spaces like this, through proximity. The guests nearest to her found reasons to drift toward other conversations. The circle that had surrounded her an hour ago quietly collapsed inward and reformed several feet away, as though she had become a gravitational force running in reverse. Elena stood in the resulting open space and did not move. She was still holding her champagne glass. She had not taken a drink from it in several minutes. Her expression was composed in the specific, effortful way of someone performing composure for an audience that had decided to stop watching, which was, in its own way, the hardest performance of all. Marcus crossed the floor toward her. He was aware of the looks he collected on the way. A man in a contractor's badge moving with deliberate purpose across a ballroom full of people who all knew each other and all knew he was not one of them. He had walked into rooms like that his entire life. The looks never stopped entirely, but they had long since stopped mattering. He stopped in front of Elena Vance. She looked at him the way you looked at something that did not fit the pattern. Not unkindly, but with the careful attention of a person trying to rapidly assess an unexpected variable. "I don't dance well," Marcus said. "I want to be honest about that up front, but you shouldn't be standing alone right now." Elena studied him for a moment. Her eyes moved to his contractor badge, then back to his face. "You're the systems contractor," she said. It was not a question. "Yes. You understand what just happened in this room." "I understand what they want people to think happened," Marcus said. "That's different." Something shifted almost imperceptibly in her expression. Not hope, she was too controlled for hope to show that quickly, but the slight recalibration of someone who had just heard an unexpected answer to a question they hadn't asked aloud. "If you stand next to me tonight," Elena said, her voice level and precise, "they will make sure you feel it. Your contracts, your reputation, whatever you've built, they are thorough." "I know." "Then you understand why I'm telling you to walk away." "I do," Marcus said. "I'm not going to." She looked at him for another moment. He did not fill the silence with explanation or reassurance. He simply waited, the way he waited for systems to complete their diagnostics, without impatience, without pressure. "Why?" she said. "Because I stood still once when I shouldn't have," Marcus said. "I decided after that I wasn't going to do it again." He said it without drama, without the weight of a man who wanted credit for his history. It landed the way true things did, without decoration. Elena Vance set her champagne glass on the tray of a passing waiter. She placed her hand on Marcus's arm. "I warned you," she said. "You did," he agreed. They moved to the edge of the dance floor, where a small orchestra was working through something slow and unmemorable. Marcus was not lying about his dancing. He was functional at best, built more for steadiness than grace. But steadiness turned out to be exactly what the moment required. They were not the only people on the floor, but they became the thing the room looked at. Marcus had expected the stares. What he had not fully anticipated was the specific quality of them. Not mockery, not the open contempt that had been directed at Elena 10 minutes ago, but something more uncertain. Calculation. People trying to understand what they were seeing and what it meant. A systems engineer who nobody knew, standing in the middle of a crisis he had no stake in, refusing to behave the way the room had scripted. That kind of disruption made people nervous. Nervous people reconsidered their positions. Marcus filed the observation away. He leaned slightly closer and kept his voice below the music. The video was transmitted from a device plugged directly into the building's display system, he said. Secondary HDMI port on the main controller. I found it during my pre-event check, before any of this happened. Elena did not change her expression. A slight tightening at the corner of her jaw was the only indication she had heard him. You found it before the video played, she said, 15 minutes before. And you didn't remove it. Removing it would have destroyed it as evidence. I mirrored the data instead, full copy, file structure, metadata, transmission logs, destination IP address. A pause. They turned with the music. Across the room, Pierce had gone very still. The metadata, Elena said carefully. File creation date is 11 days ago. The video was produced in advance, not captured in real time. Whoever made it had access to your schedule, your building's security camera archive, and your competitor's executive calendar. The destination IP. Registered to a shell company, but the shell traces back to a parent entity. He paused one beat. Meridian Group, whose acquisition offer you rejected 3 weeks ago. I confirmed the connection from their public filings while I was waiting in the corridor before the event started. Elena's hand tightened on his arm. Just once. A single, controlled contraction. I have something too, she said quietly. Email chains. Internal communications showing that an audit I formally requested was deliberately delayed by Pierce's department. I've had them for 2 weeks, kept as insurance. But without technical corroboration, they were circumstantial. Her voice was steady, a person thinking in real time rather than reacting. Your data changes that. Where are the emails? On my phone. I can push them to the secondary display screen on the north wall. It runs independently from the main system. Pierce can't cut it remotely. She glanced toward the screen, then back. I need the room's attention on something else while I move to the AV station. How long do you need? 90 seconds. I'll give you 2 minutes, Marcus said. For just a moment, half a second, no more, Elena almost smiled. Pierce moved before the song ended. Marcus saw him speak quietly to the head of security. Garrett, broad-shouldered, professional, wearing the particular expression of someone who was good at his job and slightly uncomfortable with tonight's instructions, and then repositioned to intercept. He did it efficiently, without visible urgency, in a way that would look like reasonable event management to anyone who didn't know what to look for. Garrett approached as the music softened between pieces. Mr. Webb, his voice was professional. Your access credentials cover the technical areas. The ballroom is reserved for invited guests. I need to ask you to step out of the main hall. I was directed to remain available for system issues for the duration of the event, Marcus said. It's in my contract with the building. I understand that, sir. I'll handle this, Garrett. Pierce had arrived. He positioned himself slightly off to the side, never quite confrontational, never providing a single word that could be called a threat in any courtroom, with the practiced ease of a man who had conducted 1,000 conversations in which he held all the leverage. He looked at Marcus with an expression of measured, courteous concern. I appreciate what you think you're doing, Pierce said, but you should understand the position you're putting yourself in. He paused, as though giving Marcus time to absorb the warning. I know you work contract to contract. 3 of your current accounts are with firms in our portfolio. Those contracts come up for renewal next month. He let that sit for exactly the right number of seconds. I also know you have a daughter, he continued, which means you have real responsibilities. And whatever you think you found tonight, it isn't worth what it's going to cost you. Said without raising his voice, without a word that could be called a threat. The power did the work, so the words didn't have to. Marcus looked at him and said nothing for a moment. Across the room, in his peripheral vision, he could see Elena moving, quietly, unhurried, toward the north wall AV station, while every eye in the vicinity was directed at this conversation. Good. I appreciate the concern, Marcus said. Pierce nodded slightly, already reading it as the beginning of retreat. I'm going to decline, Marcus said. The nod stopped. "I want to make sure I understand you correctly," Pierce said, and for the first time, something beneath the polish became audible. Not anger, something colder than anger. "I think you do," Marcus said. Elena had reached the AV station. She worked quickly, not hurrying but efficient, the movements of someone who had made a decision and was executing it without second-guessing. She pulled up the email chain on her phone, found the secondary display's input port, and connected. 30 seconds. The screen on the north wall came to life. She walked back to the center of the room and positioned herself where she could be seen. At the same moment, Pierce looked toward the north wall and understood what had happened. The email chain was visible to everyone in the room. Dates, names, the bureaucratic specific language of a paper trail that someone had not quite managed to bury. His stillness, for just a fraction of a second, broke. Then Elena stepped forward and addressed the room directly. Pierce made one more attempt to manage the situation. "I'll handle this, Elena," Pierce said, moving toward her. "Let's not make this worse than it needs to be." Elena looked at him without moving. "I'm not making anything worse, Raymond. I'm making it clear." She turned to the board members. "These communications are between Mr. Pierce's office and our internal audit department. They document 3 deliberate delays to an audit I formally requested on March 4th. An audit that, had it proceeded on schedule, would have identified the unauthorized external device installed in this building's AV system weeks before tonight." She did not raise her voice. She did not perform outrage. She simply laid it out piece by piece the way she had built her company, methodically, without waste. Mr. Webb's technical data establishes the origin and method of tonight's video. These emails establish the internal mechanism that prevented it from being caught in advance. Together, they constitute a complete account. She looked at the assembled board members. "I'm requesting that all governance actions be suspended pending an independent forensic review. I believe that is in everyone's interest, including those who have not yet decided which side of this evening they want to be on." The room held its breath. Then Elena turned back to where Pierce stood, and something shifted in his face. Not surrender, but the specific, recognizable expression of a man running out of moves and beginning to understand it. Pierce looked at Marcus. One long, final assessment. "You have no idea what you've walked into," he said. "I had a pretty good idea," Marcus said. "That's why I documented it." Garrett, the security chief, had been watching the exchange from several feet away. He had taken his instructions from Pierce at the start of the evening. He had also just watched those instructions become, very publicly, a liability. He made a quiet, practical decision, the kind a careful professional makes when the ground has shifted, and repositioned himself near the main entrance. Not toward Pierce, not toward Elena. Neutral ground, available. It was a small movement. In a room this charged, it registered like a signal. Gerald Marsh, 71 years old, the largest individual shareholder in the room, a man who had been silent all evening with the particular patience of someone reserving judgment until the evidence was in, stood up from his chair near the east wall. "I'm calling Daniel Hendricks from Data Vault Forensics," he said. "He can be here within the hour." He looked at the room. "We table everything until he's reviewed Mr. Webb's data and Ms. Vance's documentation. All governance actions suspended pending his assessment." He looked at Pierce. "Raymond, I'd like you to remain available." It was said with complete courtesy. It was also, unmistakably, the full weight of a man who had been in rooms like this for 50 years. Pierce said, "Of course." He did not leave, but something left him. The forward momentum that had been driving every action all evening. Without it, he looked like what he actually was, a man standing in a room where the plan had stopped working, surrounded by people who were beginning to do the arithmetic. The shift that followed was gradual. Board members who had been drifting toward Pierce's side found reasons to stand somewhere more neutral. The 2 men who had been on their phones near the bar put their phones away. Patricia Holloway, senior partner at Vance Tech's regulatory law firm, conspicuously silent all evening, approached Elena and requested access to the email documentation. Elena told her she would have it once the forensic review was underway and that she would need the request on record. Holloway understood what that meant. She accepted it. Others followed. Not many, not yet, but enough to cross the threshold that turned a closed circle into an open one. Marcus walked across the room to where Davidson was standing with Lily. "Thank you, Tom," he said quietly. Davidson nodded. "Everything okay?" "Getting there," Marcus said. He crouched down to Lily's level. She was watching Pierce across the room with the unself-conscious directness of a child who had not yet learned to disguise her assessments. "Ready to go soon?" Marcus asked. "Is she going to be okay?" Lily asked. Marcus looked at Elena, fielding Holloway, managing the approach of two board members, already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Yeah," he said. "She's going to be fine." "Good," Lily said, as though that settled it. She took her father's hand. Part 3. 2,276 words. Pierce did not leave immediately. That was the thing about men like him. They did not break cleanly. They recalibrated. They looked for the remaining angle, the overlooked exit, the conversation that might still be salvaged. Marcus had seen it in smaller rooms with smaller stakes. The moment a plan failed was rarely the moment the person behind it accepted that fact. Pierce straightened his jacket and addressed the room. "What we're witnessing," he said, his voice still measured, still carrying the practiced authority of a man who had spent 30 years ensuring he sounded more reasonable than everyone else in any given space, is a coordinated attempt to undermine a legitimate governance process. A contractor with no legal standing in this organization has made unsupported technical claims. Ms. Vance has presented internal documents of unclear provenance. Neither constitutes evidence by any standard that would hold up to scrutiny. He turned toward the board members. Any data collected from this building's systems by an unauthorized party is legally compromised. It cannot be used. And I would strongly advise the board to resist the pressure of a theatrical moment and wait for proper legal counsel before making any decisions tonight. He was good. Marcus recognized it without resentment. The argument had been assembled in the 30 seconds available, and it was not a bad argument. It contained enough procedural language to give uncertain people a reason to hesitate. Marcus waited until he finished. "The device I recovered data from was not part of Vance Tech's system," Marcus said. "It was brought in from outside and physically connected to the building's hardware without authorization. That makes it external equipment introduced into a secured venue in violation of the building's own security protocols. The data I copied from it isn't proprietary corporate information. It's evidence of a breach." He paused. "The legal distinction matters. I'd encourage your counsel to review it carefully before tonight is over." Pierce looked at him with an expression that had finally shed its surface courtesy. What was underneath was not rage. It was the flat, cold regard of a man who had decided to try a different approach. "You are a contract technician," Pierce said. "You have no legal authority here, no standing, no credentials that qualify you to interpret data law or corporate governance." He looked at the room, drawing them in. "I understand the impulse to play the hero, but this isn't a story. In a boardroom, what matters is documentation, process, and authority, none of which you have." He let that land. Then, quieter, directed at Marcus alone, "You have a daughter, a career. You walked in here tonight with one job. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, it isn't worth what it's going to cost you. That was true an hour ago. It's still true now." The room waited. Marcus looked at Pierce for a long moment. Not with anger. Not with the performed steadiness of someone suppressing anger. With the genuine, settled quiet of a man who had made every relevant decision before he crossed the room the first time and had not reconsidered any of them since. "My daughter is watching me right now," Marcus said. "That's actually the whole point." He let the simplicity of it sit in the air. "I'm not here because I have legal standing. I'm here because I found something that mattered and I didn't put it down. I'm here because a room full of people who have every credential you just listed decided to look the other way." He looked at the board members along the perimeter. "I'm a contract technician, that's true. I also spent 4 years in forensic IT recovery before I went independent, which is why I recognized what that device was, and why I knew exactly how to document it in a way that will hold up. He reached into his jacket and removed the hard drive. Small, unremarkable, the kind of object that looked like nothing until you understood what was on it. He set it on the table in front of Gerald Marsh. I don't need to be the one who presents this. I just need to be the one who didn't throw it away. Marsh picked up the drive. He turned it over once in his hands. The deliberate handling of a man who had learned to take his time with things that mattered. He looked at Pierce. Pierce met his gaze with everything he had left. Marsh set the drive down, typed something brief on his phone, and stood. "Hendricks is on his way," he said. 1 hour. He looked around the room. "We hold here. Nothing moves until his review is complete." Then, to Pierce, "Raymond, stay available," said with complete courtesy, carrying beneath it 50 years of knowing exactly what those words meant in a room like this. Pierce said, "Of course." He did not leave, but something left him. The forward momentum that had driven every calculation of the evening. Without it, he simply stood there, a man in an expensive suit in a room where the plan had stopped working, waiting for the process he could no longer control. It did not resolve all at once. The shift was gradual, a slow reorientation, like a room adjusting to a light source that had moved. Board members who had positioned themselves near Pierce drifted toward neutral ground. The men who had been on their phones put them away. Holloway had her conversation with Elena and stepped back with the look of someone who had just made a professional calculation and committed to it. Others moved toward Elena. Not many, and not quickly, but enough. Elena did not go toward them. She let them navigate the distance themselves. She had spent enough years in positions of power to understand that the instinct to make it easier for people to return, to close the gap, to smooth the path back, rewarded behavior that deserved to be made difficult. So she stood where she was and let them come to her. Lily had not let go of Elena's hand for most of the past hour. Somewhere in the sequence of confrontations, it had simply become a fact of the room. The child standing beside the CEO, steady and uncomplicated, while everything around them shifted. Several people had looked at it and looked away quickly, in the manner of people who suddenly found their own behavior legible to themselves in a way they preferred it not to be. When the room had settled into the controlled, cautious holding pattern of people waiting for the forensic results, Elena crouched down to Lily's level. "Thank you for standing with me," she said. Lily considered this with the gravity she brought to most things. "You were by yourself," she said. "That didn't seem right." It wasn't. Dad says you should always notice when someone's by themselves, because usually there's a reason, and usually the reason isn't their fault. Elena looked up at Marcus over Lily's head. He said nothing. He had said what he had to say. The rest of it did not require words. Elena walked them to the elevator at 11:40. The ballroom behind them was still occupied. Marsh's forensic contact had arrived 18 minutes ahead of schedule, and the quiet procedural work of accountability had begun in the corner of the room where Pierce now sat with his lawyer, answering questions in the careful, diminished way of a man who had run out of moves. At the elevator, Elena turned to Marcus. "I want to offer you a position," she said. "Senior technical advisor. Independent reporting structure. You'd answer directly to the board, not to any executive. Compensation appropriate to the role." She said it plainly, without softening it. "You're the most capable person who was in that room tonight. I'd like to not lose access to that." Marcus considered it the way he considered most things, without performance. "I appreciate that," he said. "I'm going to say no." Elena did not look surprised. "Tell me why." "Because I do my best work from the outside," he said. "Once you're inside the structure, you stop being able to see the structure. That's what makes me useful to you. I'm not in it." He glanced at Lily, who was leaning against the elevator door frame, examining a small scuff on her shoe with scientific interest. "Also, she has a book report due Thursday that hasn't been started." Elena looked at Lily, then back at Marcus. "You could have walked away tonight," she said, "several times." "So could you," he said. "It's my company. I didn't have a choice." "I didn't have a choice either," Marcus said. "Just a different reason." Elena was quiet for a moment. "What was it like, working with no stake in the outcome?" "I had a stake," Marcus said, "just not in the outcome you're thinking of." He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. She understood. The elevator arrived. Lily stepped in first and turned to face Elena through the opening doors, with the frank, evaluating look she gave to most situations she was making up her mind about. "I hope your company is okay," she said. "It's going to be," Elena said, "because of your father." Lily glanced at Marcus with the matter-of-fact satisfaction of someone whose expectations had been confirmed. "I know," she said. "He's good at fixing things." Elena smiled. Not the CEO's smile. Not the composed, calibrated expression she had deployed all evening. Something smaller and more honest than that. The smile of a person who had been through something real and was still standing on the other side of it. "When you need someone who sees what other people miss," Marcus said as the doors began to close, "you know how to reach me." "I do," Elena said. The doors closed. Outside, the October air was sharp and clean after the pressurized warmth of the ballroom. Lily pulled her jacket tighter and looked up at the Whitman Tower, 40 floors of glass and steel lit from within. "Did we do a good thing?" she asked. Marcus took her hand. "Yeah," he said. "We did." They walked toward the parking garage. Lily's footsteps fell in their familiar rhythm, stepping deliberately on every third crack in the pavement, a private rule she had never explained and he had never asked about. He had learned with her that some things did not need explaining. They just needed to be honored. Behind them, through 40 floors of glass, the careful, unglamorous work of the truth continued. Marcus did not look back. He already knew how it ended. There's something this story keeps coming back to, and it isn't the technology or the boardroom drama. It's a question Lily asked her father on a sidewalk outside a tower full of powerful people. Did we do a good thing? Not, did we win? Not, was it worth it? Just, did we do a good thing? Marcus Webb wasn't powerful. He wasn't wealthy. He had a contractor's badge and a hard drive, and a daughter who needed to be home by 9. What he had, the thing that changed everything, was the decision he had made sometime before that night never to stand still when standing still was wrong. Most of us will never be in a room like that one. But most of us will have a moment where doing the right thing costs something real, and the easier path is right there, and no one would blame us for taking it. Those moments are quieter than ballrooms. They don't have orchestras or chandeliers, but they're the ones that define us, to the people watching, and to ourselves. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and stay with us. Every week we bring you stories about ordinary people who do extraordinary things, not because they had power, but because they made a choice. That's the kind of story worth telling, and we're just getting started.